Hey, welcome back to the Maxwell Leadership Podcast. This is the podcast that adds value to leaders who multiply value to others. Now, you've joined us as Tracy Morrow and I are listening in and then giving application to John Maxwell's message on experiencing breakthrough in your life and your leadership. Now, John gave us 4 breakthroughs last lesson. In fact, you're going to hear in just a moment, he's going to jump right into 5 and give us 5 through 8. But here's my question. Do you want to experience breakthrough in your life, in your leadership, in your dreams? This whole lesson is built off of John's book, Put Your Dream to the Test. And I challenge you that you cannot chase a dream until you chase yourself, until you strengthen yourself. So your first breakthrough moment, your first experience moment of 2024 perhaps is to finish this episode and then get tickets to Day to Grow on March 9th in Orlando, Florida. You can find out more about this event and what we're doing with this event by going to daytogrow.com. That's grow.com. But until March 9th rolls around, be sure to download the bonus resource for this episode and watch this episode on YouTube at maxwellpodcast.com/breakthrough. Now grab your pen and paper. If this is your first podcast, you're going to hear the first number is 5. That means you got to go back to last week. But for all of us, John is getting ready to give us a breakthrough to the life, the leadership, and the dreams we want to accomplish. Here's John.
Let's go to number 5. The 5th breaker in my life, as far as my dreams, is what I call the tiebreaker. Now, we know what a tiebreaker is. A tiebreaker is something that in a sporting contest, the teams are tied. What's going to break the tie? I mean, who's going to win? Now, in my life, I'm going to finish this sentence and I'm going to explain it. The tiebreaker in my life for my dream encouraged me to serve. God began to show me that what I should do is when I left the church, I should pick 10 people, 10 great Christian leaders, and serve them as long as I could add value to them. And I made my list. I still have that list today of those 10 people that I would serve, that I would add value. I'd come alongside of them. I'd do whatever I could to help their ministry. And the whole concept began to really motivate me. But here's the principle. John, if you'll go to bigger men than you are and better men than you are, and you'll add value to them, your ministry will be much bigger and better than what you could ever do it by yourself anyway. And I really began to grasp it. I really got to see it. So I wrote those 10 names down, and I diligently, over the next few years, served them. And the tiebreaker for me was when I realized I could pour my life into others and I could serve value to them. So now where are we in this adding value dream? All right, now notice what's happening in my dream in this breakthrough. I'm now adding value to specific leaders. Do you see how the dream keeps getting refined and molded because of these breakthroughs? Number 6. Oh, and by the way, ask yourself the question at the end of each breakthrough. This one, what is the tiebreaker of my dream? I promise you, some of you are already wrestling with one. And what am I going to do and what decision am I going to make? Number 6 is the chart breaker. When you think of something off the charts, you think of something that has soared and just gone bigger and higher than you could have ever imagined. And the chart breaker, this encouraged me to soar. This one got my dream to a whole new level, way beyond anything I could have imagined. Now, do you see what's happening to my dream? This chart breaker is just now, I'm soaring. We're getting way beyond anything we could ever imagine. And see, what do I want to do? I want to add value to people. Well, then I want to add value to leaders. Well, those people are going to add value back to me. And I'm going to add value to specific leaders. And you see how it's just continually getting bigger and bigger. Now at this breakthrough, the chart breaker, guess what I'm doing? I'm adding value to leaders who are what? Multiplying value to leaders. Now we're compounding. This breakthrough has me in a compounding state. Again, the question for all of us is, what is the chart breaker of my dream? What just causes me to soar? Number 7 is a heartbreaker. I think every great dream has a heartbreaker in it. I think usually the heartbreaker is not exposed in the beginning because if it did, we wouldn't have heart to pursue it. Dreams are fun in the beginning, aren't they? Think about a dream in the beginning. I mean, you're just sitting around the table with 2 or 3 of your buddies and you're sketching out something you'd like to maybe do together. Dreams are fun in the beginning because guess what? In the beginning, there's no price to be paid. There's no people to be enlisted. There's no cost involved. There's no adversity. I mean, dreams are fun in the beginning. But in that dream somewhere, I'll promise you, you'll have a heartbreaker. And this heartbreaker encouraged me to stop. Now, isn't that interesting? I had a groundbreaker that encouraged me to start, and now I've got a heartbreaker that encouraged me to stop. Now, when I said encouraged me to stop, it encouraged me to stop everything I was doing and reevaluate. It happened in 1998, my heart attack. It literally was a heartbreaker. I could remember in Grady Hospital the night when they weren't certain I would make it, and I had 6 doctors kept talking to themselves and working on me. I can remember I was 51 years of age, and I kept asking myself, is my mission really done? Now, I didn't have anxiety. I can tell you, I know what the peace of God, I know all about that. Death I view it much differently now because I thought I was going to die. I mean, I wasn't anxious. But I kept asking myself the question, is this it? I mean, is my mission for God done? And I kept thinking, it can't be done yet. I still got stuff I want to accomplish. And, I went through that process quite a bit that evening. And fortunately, God spared my life, and I had wonderful doctors and all of those good things that happened. But I'll tell you what it allowed me to do. It allowed me to stop and understand that if I didn't take care of myself, I couldn't take care of anybody else. Now we close out with one more breakthrough. The record breaker. Whenever you think of a record breaker, it's the person who did something that no one else has done, or they broke something that is amazing kind of a feat. And my record breaker encourages me to smile. It really does. And today I'm living the dream. I'm experiencing today the value and understanding the value of adding value to others. I was interviewed yesterday. They were doing for a magazine that'll come out in a couple of months. And in the interview, they said, now, what do you yet want to accomplish? And I know I disappointed them because it was a success magazine. I really do. I know I disappointed them because they were wanting me to say, well, next I want to do this. And I said, I would like to do better what I'm doing now. I hope I'm not lazy. I hope I'm not lethargic. But I'd just like to do better what I'm doing now. I'd like to write better books than I'm writing now. I'd like to communicate better than I'm communicating now. But I don't have ambitions I don't need to start anything again, don't need to lead anything again. Been there, done that. Loved every moment of it. Great contentment. Here it is. Here's the best way I can phrase it. I'm living my dream. I'm living it. And I think if I do better, I'll live it more fully. But I'm living my dream. I'm not going somewhere else to get to finally get my dream. It's not some destination or some place or some person. I'm living my dream. And I put it in your notes. After years of trying to make my dream, I have now discovered that my dream made me. That's a fact. All those years I'm trying to make my dream, make my dream, make my dream, make my dream. And these breakthroughs that we're talking about, these 8 breakthroughs, they molded me. And today I would say, I didn't make the dream. The dream made me. And when you realize that, instead of gloating about the dream, you're grateful for the dream. It's a whole different perspective. Well, what's the record breaker in your dream? Many of you aren't there yet. It's okay. It's a journey. I gave you 8 breakthroughs, and there are some of you probably have 4 or 5 of them already under your belt. Some of you maybe haven't got any of them under your belt. Some of you may have 8 and say, John, as soon as the lesson's over, I've got another one to teach you. I have no idea, but I know this. Somewhere in your dream, you're going to need to have those breakthroughs.
Hey, John Maxwell here. I'm in the studio. We've been recording all day. And I was thinking about really one of my very favorite experiences that we have, and that is called Day to Grow. If you want to grow in every area of your life. I tell people all the time, you don't want to go to something, you want to grow to something. But if you're passionate about personal growth, development, your team, and growing them, you do not want to miss Day to Grow. I'm going to have some real players with me. Deion Sanders, Jamie Kern-Lima, myself. Oh my gosh, you don't want to miss it. So mark it. Come and see us on Day to Grow. I will promise you this. You come and bring your team, and at the end of the day, you'll come up and shake my hand and say, one of the best days I've ever invested in for myself and for my team. I'll see you there.
Hey, welcome back. Tracy Morrow and I here in studio and growing. I hope wherever you are listening or watching, you're growing as well. Maybe you're listening to us while you're improving your health. Way to go. It's February. It's the end of February and you're still focused on it. I'm proud of you. Maybe you're commuting and taking your kids to school. Wherever you are and however you're listening to this or viewing this, we're really proud of you. In fact, we're so proud that we want to challenge you to have breakthroughs in your life, your leadership, and certainly in achieving your dreams. Now, last episode, John gave us 4 breakthroughs that that shaped his ability to today experiencing his dreams. His dreams was not 36 million copies of a book. His dream was not to speak to millions of people every single year. Yes, I said millions every single year. His dreams were not houses and cars. He's accomplished every last bit of that. His dream was to add value to leaders who would multiply value to others. And he has been breaking that down for us last week. We'll continue this week. Last week, he talked about a groundbreaker, the first breakthrough experience, a groundbreaker, then an icebreaker, then a windbreaker, and then a cloud breaker. And so, Tracy, we're going to pick up today on the final 4 that John has done. I've watched him do these breakers in chasing things all of my career here and certainly had some experience breakthroughs myself.
Yes, I have as well. And I'm excited to hit on these last 4. I want to kick off by saying, I hope that you will all come to Day to Grow because that's where you kind of close the gap between listening to us on a podcast or watching us on YouTube and actually meeting us in real life, because Mark and I are both going to be at Day to Grow. So we hope that you will join us there and get to meet us, and we'll get to meet you live and in person at Day to Grow. So what I love really about John talking about experiencing breakthrough is it sets the expectation that there is going to be something to break through. And I think a lot of times when we think of success, we think that there isn't going to be anything to break through. And as a great mentor, and John is the best, he lets us know that there are things that we need to break through in order to have success. And as we hit these last 4, these last 4 are tiebreaker, the chart breaker, the heartbreaker, and the record breaker. Before I get to our first question, Mark, I wanted to see, last time you kind of went through and summarized. Did you have a desire to kind of summarize again before we hit into questions?
Yeah, let me do that, Tracy. I enjoyed that last time. I don't do that every lesson,
too.
But
yeah.
Because John is so in tune with his passion, his vision, I found a lot of times in lessons like this, you said it, Tracy, that this is more of the art of leadership. It's not necessarily the 3 bullet points and a nice application point. It's really an illustration. And let me tell you what I did with that illustration so that I could then break through to my dreams. So because it's artsy, because it's John's journey that he intuitively worked through to accomplish the success that he's having in his dream right now, I wanted to just take a couple of minutes from my second chair, bird's eye view, yet also my own personal journey, and kind of break these down for you. So when I think of breakthrough number 5, which is the tiebreaker, there have been many times in John's life and in my life to where there were 2 roads to travel. There were 2 great roads to travel, roads that would lead to the vision. And you have to ascertain what's going to be the tiebreaker to chasing your dream most exponentially. I know for me, I've had 10 promotions at Maxwell Leadership, 10. Got the last one January the 6th of 2020. But I will tell you, in every one of those promotions, I vetted the promotion, I vetted the opportunity with its ability to help me exponentially chase the dream that I had been called to. In other words, I didn't vet it with how much money, what status, what opportunity it was going to be. It was the question always, will this better align me with my purpose? Becoming CEO was one of them. I was pretty happy being John's business manager and having my own consulting firm and felt a lot of flexibility for the first time in mine and Stephanie's life with Macy and Tori. I was having a little bit more flexibility. And then John came and said, I don't think I can get to the next level without you being my CEO. And I went, oh, okay. Stephanie and I went into the prayer closet, and we determined what's the tiebreaker on this. And the tiebreaker is, as John Maxwell CEO, I would exponentially reach my purpose of motivating and inspiring people to reach their potential. While building my consulting firm, I would incrementally do that. It was a tiebreaker for me. Many of you today, you're thinking and you are considering the best option. And I will tell you this, I've heard it said often, sometimes the best option is the enemy of the better option. Because the better option is indicative of growing into something. The best option is taking over something that may have already had its best days behind it. Make sure you're looking for something from an opportunistic standpoint. When John says chart breaker, I told you this, Tracy, and I'm going to tell this right now. I hope I have your permission. If we don't, tell Jake and he'll edit it out after this. But when you and I were talking in our pre-show conversation, I was thinking about you as a chart breaker. Now, you don't think of yourself as a chart breaker. In fact, you're saying, Mark, what do you think John meant by chart breaker? And I will tell you this, you have created a chart that only few even show up on. You are an incredible business leader. I've observed you and Casey's relationship. You have an incredible marriage. You have an incredible set of kids that were doing quite well. And then you and your kids and Casey decided that we should extend our family and adopted 2 incredible young men that are brilliant. And yet you're trying to integrate them in from a different culture, a different place. They were born geographically different. And I've watched you and your team rally around it, and you're now living in the years of grandkids and getting married and all of this. And yet you still volunteer and make yourself available to John, and you still travel and are on stages. Somehow you have found a way to break the chart of what people say can and cannot be done with people carrying your responsibility, your passion, and trying to call that competition. You've called it completion. Many of us, John Maxwell's a proof of this. Many of us, when we get in our sweet spot chasing our dreams, we defy the logic of the people around us. Quit trying to explain it from their logical point of view. You're just a chart breaker. You just broke all the charts. And Tracy, that is absolutely true for you. And I've just said that. If you don't like it, tell Jake to delete it. But I watch you do things that truly defy what most people consider the nice, tight chart of what one person should or should not do. The 7th breakthrough that John talks about is a heartbreaker. And boy, in this year of hope, in this year of excitement, and we're 2 months in, I'm still super encouraged and excited. But boy, he got me on this heartbreaker, because in the life of every dynamic leader, there is a moment to where your heart is broken, your will is lower than it's ever been, and you have more passion to quit than to continue. That happens for every one of us. And some of you are there right now. And let me just come in today, perhaps, and speak to one of you, maybe more of you, but speak directly to you. And if you're watching YouTube, look me directly in the eyes. It's okay. Your dream's not broken, just your heart is. Your heart's going to mend, and your dream is going to begin again. Don't give it up in the moment of a heartbreak. You will overcome. The final thing that John talks about here, and I've watched him do this over and over again, is record breaker. I love that John said this encourages him to smile, because I have watched John smile as over the last 4 or 5 years, the law of compounding influence has taken place in John's life. We get reports now all the time of things that are happening that we don't even know how they began, because the law of influence, the record-breaking consistency compound statement that John has lived with forever, continues to bring in brilliant reports. I just got a report just a few days ago that in the country of Rwanda is how we say it mostly, there are 40,000 students by mandate and encouragement of the government going through values-based training, and they did it because they experienced it somewhere else and wanted to take it back to Rwanda. You have the ability to break records beyond yourself when you go through these 8 breakthroughs. You will be surprised at the records that you break.
Wow. First of all, that is quite a list. I'm so glad I asked you to do that. I didn't know that you were going to talk about me on number 6, but thank you, first of all, for those kind words. And I think as we break these down, again, just like in week 1, I love how we can hear the same lesson and take it from a little bit different angle. So I love hearing you, being second chair to John, take this angle from being right up close and personal to John, being several steps back, but also still in that same world. I'm going to kind of take it from my angle, if you don't mind, and then ask some questions in that vein, and you can take it however which way that you want. So like you said, this is something that I view as the artistic side of John. This lesson is flowery. This lesson is not a bullet point lesson, even though there are 8 points. This is the language of these breakers that you can sometimes get lost in the language. I know that for my brain, I did. So I had to redefine them for my own brain for them to make sense. So I did that last week. I'm going to do it again this week. So I'll just read through mine. The first one, for the tiebreaker, I put that where the dream becomes something beyond yourself for the tiebreaker. The chart breaker was where it compounds the dream. And we'll get into that in just a little bit. You kind of talked about that. The heartbreaker was the testing of the dream. I think that was pretty clear in both your example and John's. And then the record breaker, where the dream takes on a life of its own. And so for the tiebreaker, where he talked about for John, where this encouraged him to serve, why do you think in serving, just taking on from what John talked about, like he was on his dreams path, he was bringing people alongside of him, he was making progress already through points 1 through 4 that we discussed last week. Why do you think it's difficult for a leader? It's a tough decision for a leader to choose to serve others while they are building their dream. And yet it is such an important piece of breaking through towards getting to be a record breaker.
Yeah, I think that it truly does come down a lot of times to heart and motive. What is the motive in the pursuit of advancement? And I'm not going to pretend that there is not a lot of aspiration out there for accomplishment, because, man, I don't want to live in poverty like I did growing up, or I want to live with more self-respect and other respect than I lived before. I'm not going to go back and relive all of that. But what I will tell you, or even deny that those reasons for success and pursuing success are not legitimate. What I am going to tell you, until your dream is about serving others, you're not going to have a sense of fulfillment that I want for you. You're not going to have this ability to look back and watch others feel the power of your servanthood. So Tracy, you talked about a balance, and we all have it. I've lived in this balance in any one given year or any one given quarter. The balance between serving and the balance between directing. And what I had found is the answer to that question only can rest within one's own person while they review their motives. So there's sometimes I'm very directing. I'm not doing a whole lot of serving. There's other times I'm serving and I'm frustrated because I'm not directing. If I allow external factors to determine the difference of when I need to serve or when I need to direct, most times I'm putting on somebody else's perspective and somebody else's armor on how I should lead. I have to settle and reconcile inside, and I do that with a motive question. And if you can get settled and certain in your motives, you will be able to navigate the tiebreaker breakthroughs that comes to all of our dreams and leadership.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And moving on to number 6, where I feel like you really expanded on what that looks like, expanding your personal expectations or your team expectations that go beyond permission, or maybe a model where you're breaking out of that as a chart breaker. But I think that looks different for every person. And I think John gave it a great example of what that looks like when you allow yourself and you are encouraged to soar. And our time is short, I know, but I feel like you hit on that one so well. I'd love to go to Heartbreaker, where John talked about the test of the dream, where he had to take a pause, where he had a defining moment. And I feel like this is very common with high-level leaders, where when they are so busy doing in all these breakthroughs and finding success and creating significance, that there comes a place where they realize that they've maybe gotten to a place where they're serving from an empty cup. They've not taken care of themselves. I don't think that it is uncommon to John that his own health or taking care of you kicked off the call saying like, hey, if you're still taking care of your health, good for you. I'm proud of you. But a lot of people aren't, because life presses in. How easy is it to think I'm going to eat well, and by February you aren't eating well because you are on the run, you are traveling, you are meetinged out. And so talk about how can younger leaders and older leaders alike learn the value of taking care of me so that we can serve from a full cup? The difference of, I'm sure you know this, Mark, because I know you well, but I would love for you to share a little vulnerably of like the difference of serving from an empty cup versus how it feels when you do take care of you and you serve from a full cup, how much better you are and how much better you show up in the spaces you lead when you are serving from a full cup.
Yeah, I was really influenced by a guy by the name of Mike Breen about 15 years ago, when he taught a principle that says in a Sabbath, in a time of resting or in a time of breaking and slowing down, the pause that John's talking about, you need to work from rest rather than resting from work. Too often times we go into the point of burnout and then we have to go to that forced stop that John was talking about. In fact, John's was a heart attack. It was a true forced stop. So the first thing that I would say is many leaders are not good at this. So let's put that out there. I'm certainly not. I can't teach this with a lot of integrity. I can just tell you that we all need to find ways to replenish and refresh ourselves in a way that allows us to come into an environment, challenging or otherwise, with our best. And I think our best comes from a place of rest, a place of being in tune with ourselves. I spend every January really honing in on being my best. And I go through some spiritual exercises. I go through some physical, some relational exercises. And I tell people all the time, you will want to work for me during January and dread working for me a lot of times by about February 15th and on. And I'm kidding, but I do believe that we really spend time leading better and at greater peace when we take care of ourselves. So then, why doesn't you, why don't we do it better? Why doesn't a leader do it better? And I think that's because a part of leadership effectiveness is leaving it all on the field. I believe that there is this, I want to be in the fight. I want to be in the middle of the journey when it's all said and done, whether that's chasing and pursuing one's family, whether that's chasing and pursuing one's skydiving or rock climbing pursuits. The people that really have the passion to do something like that have counted the cost and say, would there be a better way to go out? Now, I'm not saying that that's not at all what John is saying here or what I am encouraging here, but here's what I'm going to tell you. I think us leaders that are driven are going to always deal with the moment when we reach a breaking point and we have to stop. When that happens, because many of us are there because we can't help ourselves. That's true for John, it's true for me, it's probably true for many of you. When you're there and you can't help yourself, don't give up on the dream. That's the people I want to talk to today. The people that you had the worst 2023 of your life. You have lost relationships. You have lost everything. Your heart is broke. Thank you, Mark, Tracy, John, for telling me how not to have a heartbreak, but I have one. It's okay. Dream. Dream again, because I found, just like it was for John sitting on the bed when he realized, okay, God's not ready for me to come home now. He was dreaming and came back to the workplace with some massive dreams of what he wanted to do to impact people at a spiritual level because he didn't stop dreaming at the breakthrough.
That's right. That's right. And then lastly, just closing out, the dream takes on a life of its own in the record breaker. And that is the season John is in. He was in the season when he taught this. He's still in that season. He says, this encourages me to smile. But talk a little bit. Let's close out. I'd love to hear you talk. This is really him saying there is no finish line. I think we can tend to think in this last breakthrough that he's crossed the finish line. There's no record breaker. And so he's broken the records and now he's crossed the line and his hands are up in victory and he's, got the celebratory cup and he's the winner. And I don't think that's at all what it means, although I think people have a feeling of when you start something, that always means you end something or there's a finish line. So talk a little bit about how the record breaker and hitting that point in your career or in your leadership journey, where it doesn't mean when you attain this, which is to me kind of the zone or level 5 leadership, where you have the smile, but you aren't crossing a finish line.
Yeah, I'm just really struck by this. We've all, for the last month, we've all been dealing with this. Bill Belichick retirement and Nick Saban retirement and Pete Carroll retirement. All three great coaches that have reached some of their top epitome of success in the coaching industry. And on one day, January the 10th, they all resigned at the same time.
Crazy.
And I don't know what drives that, because I look at all three of those icons and I still learn from them by watching their sidelines and watching their teams play. But I think the way John would teach this is very much like you, Tracy, are saying. There is no finish line, specifically in growing yourself and learning and applying yourself to impact others, and certainly in dreaming. One of my favorite things is when we have a 74, 75, somebody even older than John joins the Maxwell leadership team. Now, we have a lot of younger people. We have a lot of people out there that are just getting started with dreams, but I love it. I was just talking with someone just a couple of days ago that said, hey, I'm brand new to the team. I'm 76 and my best dreams and my best days are ahead of me. I went, you're on the right team. You're on the right team, because a breakthrough, a record breakthrough, should not stop you from staying in the game. It should encourage you to go and chase the next summit, the next record. I love this quote by Terrell Owens that said, instead of having a breakdown, I'm focusing on having a breakthrough. And that's a little bit of what we talked about in number 7, the heartbreaker. As we kind of close today and we close out a 2-part series, I really hope that this has inspired you to dream. It's inspired you to dream again. And you have assessed, where are you needing a breakthrough? Where are you needing? I want to go back as I finish and talk about this heartbreaker. Some of you have had the heartbreaker, but you haven't lamented it as something you couldn't control. Therefore, you've not moved on. Some of you just need to go and sit after this lesson in this moment and allow yourself to let the things that come into you that are meant to break you to be breakthroughs. That's what our goal has been. That's why we've been talking about building on your breakthroughs. Take these 8 that John has taught, certainly make them applicable to you. I haven't mentioned this, but in this 2-part series, we had a a digital product that we're making available, Put Your Dream to the Test. A lot of John's breakthroughs is coming from this content. And so the book and the digital product is in the show notes. You can go there. You can get this digital product. It's normally $3.99. You can get it for $79 over the next week. So go check that out, and maybe we'll leave it up a little longer for those of you that are just listening to this a little bit later. Hey, we have a incredible comment today from one of our listeners. Your comments fuel us. Makes Tracy and I just kind of smile, have kind of that record-breaking moment that John was talking about. And today is from Deanne. She says, if you do not like the way you feel about a situation, change the way you are thinking about it. Gratitude and negative thinking cannot coexist. Deanne, you are exactly right. Thanks for listening to that podcast, How to Improve Every Day. We'll put that in the show notes, because if it inspired that kind of greatness in Deanne, it'll inspire that kind of greatness in you, because that's what we want. We want to bring powerful, positive change, because everyone deserves to be led well.